Welcome to Trickstuff. Let's bleed a Piccola HD. First off, we'll remove our brake pads. And for that, take off your security clip, 2.5mm hex key, remove your pad retaining screw, put them aside, and then rescue your brake pads. You don't want any oil spills on these, so I put them not on my workbench, but somewhere safe. Now is the right time to push your caliper pistons back. For that, I'll use just a plain old flat wrench. Of course, you can use our Triple-B tool for that. It's a little bit easier, but you can just use this, for example. I'll just insert it into my caliper and push my pistons back parallelly. Don't try to leverage it and try to force it. Just reset it. If anything seems like it gets stuck, then you can just start over. Don't tilt it, just go parallelly and take your time for this. Then it's the right time to take your bleed block, the block, and insert it into your brake caliper. And your pad retaining screw to keep it where it should sit. Nice. This means preparation is now done. If you are working on your rear caliper, it's a good idea to take it off your post mount and hang it down loosely so that the whole caliper faces upwards, just like this, just like if you were to hang it from your brake hose. This way all the bleeding channels inside of your caliper are facing upwards, and then it's easier to bleed. For the next step, I'll put my pump into the bleeding position. For that, I'll need the 3mm Allen key, 2.5 if you have a band clamp. I open my clamp screw just for like one turn. Turn it so that it's facing vertically upwards, and then clamp it back down. Then it's the right time to prepare your syringes. We'll need two syringes, one with the M5 adapter and the other one with the M4 adapter on them. They're all included in your Trickstuff Bleed kit. And of course we need Bionol for bleeding. To attach your syringe to your pump, we will now take a rag to catch up any oil spills that might happen when you open your brake pump. You'll need a Torx 10, and then we can open our bleed port on the brake pump, take out the bleed screw, set it aside, and now we can attach our M5 at the pump. Hand tight does the trick. Just close it. That's all you need. To attach the syringe to your caliper, we will need the Torx 10. And again, to open our bleed port, the screw that you find there is just a dust cap. This doesn't have any O-ring. All this does is prevent any dirt and grime to enter your bleeding connector. So you won't need to replace any O-rings in that one. Then we will take our M4 syringe, put it into the caliper, tighten it down. Hand tight does the trick. Halfway filled up with Bionol is good. And then you will need the 7mm open end wrench to open your bleed valve. And then we can start the bleeding procedure. Quarter of a turn is enough. Now our system is open. During the whole bleeding procedure, you should always pay attention that your syringes are facing upwards, so that any air that is entrapped in your syringe is prevented from entering into your system. So what I do now is I will start flushing my system out. This means that I'm pushing on my caliper syringe and I'm pulling a slight vacuum on my pump syringe. This way I can increase the flow rate, and this makes bleeding a little bit easier. I will then reverse this procedure, and basically I'm shoving fluid from my caliper to my pump and backwards. I can repeat this as often as I need to evacuate the whole system. If there's no bubbles coming out anymore, then you're done with this step. Usually it takes 2-3 laps of pushing back and forth, and then we're good. Now we can already start to check our system. For this, I will just close my syringe at the bottom, use my open end wrench, 3 Newton meters, and close it. And now I can already feel for my bite point. If the bite point that I get is solid and doesn't feel spongy, then I'm already done with the system. Then you can continue in a later step where we finish up the pump. If not, if things feel a little bit spongy still and you're not happy with your bite point, then now's the time to do an extra purge of your caliper. I'll show you how that's done. As just said, in some cases it might be necessary to purge your caliper extra. This way we can get some extra air out of the caliper if anything should be entrapped in there. My system is still closed. I will take my bleed block back out. We need that again in a few seconds. But now is the time where we insert just a regular wrench into the caliper where the disc would regularly go. And then I can pump my brake a couple of times and pump out my caliper pistons. If the wrench is in place, then your caliper pistons can't fall out. And they should move out so far that they touch the wrench. Which is now. So now, in the next step, we take the 7mm open end wrench, open our bleed port at the caliper, point it upwards, and pull a little vacuum. One solid pull does the trick. And with the bleed port still open, I will now push back the caliper pistons, starting from the one furthest away. So lower piston goes back first. Both sides. And then the top ones. What this does is it purges the pockets of your caliper and pushes everything, like all the air that might have been entrapped in your caliper in the lower parts, should now either be on its way to the syringe or already in the brake line. So now caliper pistons are all the way back. Take your bleed block back into your caliper. Secure it with a black pad retaining bolt. Cool. And now I can flush my system out. Any entrapped air should now go straight to the brake pump. Once back again. And up we go. So now in the end I pushed all the fluid back up to my brake pump, and my caliper syringe is almost empty. Now I can close up my brake caliper, 3 Newton meters, 7mm open end wrench, and now I can tend to my brake pump. To do the last purge of the brake pump, I can just pull and push and pull and push. This flushes out the top system. Just a couple runs. If you see no air bubbles coming out of here, then you're done. In the end, it's very important to do a little push and leave the system like this. Don't pull on it anymore or you will pull air back into your system. So to finish it up, little push onto your syringe. Grab a rag if you don't want any oil spills. If you placed your brake pads directly under your front brake, now is the right time to put them somewhere else. And now we can open our system at the top. A little bit of oil coming out is completely normal. System should be filled to the brim. And now I can take my bleed screw and visually inspect the O-ring on it. If the O-ring has any damages or any or it looks a little bit crooked or there's cuts in it, then now's the right time to replace it. If it looks fine, you can reuse it. And then put it back into the system, close it down, Torx back, and basically we're almost done. Pump is already finished. We will finish up the caliper now. as I already closed my bleed valve, now is the time to do like 1.5 turns with your syringe, and now I can pull a little bit of air in. What you get from that is that your bleed port down here is basically oil free. You won't need to clean it extra, so it's spill free if you do it right. And now we can take our Torx 10 again and close our caliper up. System's fully closed, our bleed block is still in. Now's the right time to do a little test and check up of our system, whether everything is in order. For that I will take my 3mm Allen key and put my brake back into riding position. And now I can do a little check of the bite point that we created in our bleeding procedure. This now feels really solid and like an instant bite point. It isn't spongy. It doesn't change its position. And before we finish the system up, now I can do, for example, a high pressure test. This means that I'm pulling my brake really hard for 5 times and then I hold it. And then I can inspect all the parts of my brake where oil could exit. Hold this for 30 seconds and see whether your finger force reduces or whether any oil exits somewhere on your brake. If anything of that should happen, then you have a little high pressure leak. This means that there might be a service necessary or that there's some port not closed yet. And if you are getting in trouble with this one, then you can always contact our customer support. Seems fine. Little low pressure test. All good. We can finish up the system. Next, we remove the bleed blocks. And now's the right time to get rid of any oil spills that might have happened during the whole bleeding procedure. We suggest you just use regular old dish soap for it and a lot of hot water. This is the best to clean your bike. Don't use any brake cleaners on them, just regular dish soap does the trick. And then when your brake is all done with that, then we can reinsert our brake pads. So now we can reinsert the brake pads into the caliper. Use your pad retaining bolt to close them up. And don't forget your little C-clip. That's it, basically. You can do it.